Hello, 5th grade. Today we're going to start on chapter 2 of Bridge to Terabithia, but before we begin, I just wanted to tell you that there is a little bit of language in this chapter. We're going to just move past it. When I read, I'm either going to skip language or I'll use some kind of a substitute word. I know you can handle it because you are almost in 6th grade now, so we're just going to be mature and move on past it. Chapter 2, Leslie Burke. Ellie and Brenda weren't back by 7. Jess had finished all the picking and helped his mother can the beans. She never canned except when it was scalding hot anyway. And all the boiling turned the kitchen into some kind of heck hole. Of course, her temper had been terrible, and she had screamed at Jess all afternoon and was now too tired to fix any supper. Jess made peanut butter sandwiches for the little girls and himself, and because the kitchen was still hot and almost nauseatingly full of bean smell, the three of them went outside to eat. I underlined these two sentences because notice that it was Jess doing all the work, not the sisters. The U-Haul was still out by the Perkins place. He couldn't see anybody moving outside, so they must have finished unloading. I hope they have a girl, 6 or 7, said Maybelle. I need somebody to play with. You got Joyce Ann. I hate Joyce Ann. She's nothing but a baby. Joyce Ann's lip went out. They both watched it tremble. Then her pudgy body shuddered, and she let out a great cry. Who's teasing the baby? His mother yelled out the screen door. Jess sighed and poked the last of his sandwich into Joyce Ann's open mouth. Have you ever done that? If a little kid is about to start throwing a fit, just feed them, keep them happy. Her eyes went wide and she clamped her jaws down on the unexpected gift. Now, maybe he could have some peace. He closed the screen door gently as he entered and slipped past his mother, who was rocking herself in the kitchen chair watching TV. In the room he shared with the little ones, he dug under the mattress and pulled out his pad and pencils. Then, stomach down on the bed, he began to draw. Jess drew the way some people drink whiskey. He was saying that Jess draws and just can't get enough of it. Is there anything you just can't get enough of? Maybe video games, or for me, it's usually Starbucks, as you know. The piece would start at the top of his muddled brain and then seep down through his tired, tensed up body. Lord, he loved to draw. If the piece starts at the top and just settles down, how does that make him feel? Or drawing makes him feel relaxed and calm. What makes you feel relaxed and calm? Animals, mostly. Not regular animals like Miss Bessie or the chickens, but crazy animals with problems. For some reason, he liked to put his beasts into impossible fixes. This one was a hippopotamus just leaving the edge of the cliff, turning over and over. You could tell by the curving lines in the air toward the sea below, where surprised fish were leaping goggle-eyed out of the water. There was a balloon over his hippopotamus, where his head should have been, but his bottom actually was. Oh, it was saying, I seem to have forgot my glasses. So what kind of pictures does Jess draw? Animals with problems, right? So I'm thinking about that. When we usually write and draw, maybe sing, we usually do things that express what's going on inside of us. So the fact that Jess likes to draw animals with problems, big problems, that helps us to know something else about Jess. Jess began to smile. If he decided to show it to Maybelle, he would have to explain the joke. But once he did, she would laugh like a live audience on TV. He would like to show his drawings to his dad, but he didn't dare. When he was in 1st grade, he had told his dad that he wanted to be an artist when he grew up. He thought his dad would be pleased. He wasn't. "What are they teaching you in that darn school?" he had asked. "Bunch of old ladies turning on my only son into some kind of a..." He had stopped on the word, but Jess had gotten the message. It was one you didn't forget, even after 4 years. So here's some text evidence, again, that Jess has a difficult relationship with his dad, that they're very distant, that something hurtful was said by his dad 4 years ago, and it still affects Jess, even today. The devil of it was that none of his regular teachers ever liked his drawings. When they'd catch him scribbling, they'd screech about waste, wasted time, wasted paper, wasted ability, except Miss Edmunds, the music teacher. She was the only one he dared show anything to, and she'd only been at the school 1 year, and then only on Fridays. Miss Edmunds was one of his secrets. He was in love with her. Not the silly kind. Not the kind of silly stuff Ellie and Brenda giggled about on the telephone. This was too real, too deep to talk about, even to think about her very much. Her long, swishy black hair and blue eyes. She could play the guitar like a regular recording star, and she had this soft, floaty voice that made Jess squish inside. Lord, she was gorgeous, and she liked him too. Now, that means only the appropriate way that a teacher likes their students. It's not anything romantic, obviously. One day last winter, he had given her one of his pictures. Jess showed it to her, shoved it into her hand after class, and run. The next Friday, she had asked him to stay a minute after class. She said he was unusually talented, and she hoped he wouldn't let anything discourage him, but would keep it up. That meant, Jess believed, that she thought he was the best. It was not the kind of best that counted either at school or at home, but it was a genuine kind of best. He kept the knowledge of it buried inside of him like a pirate treasure. He was rich, very rich, but no one could know about it for now except his fellow outlaw, Julia Edmunds. "Sounds like some kind of hippie," his mother had said when Brenda, who had been in 7th grade last year, described Miss Edmunds to her. She probably was. Now, a hippie was from the 1960s. So a hippie is someone who protested the war back in the 1960s era. This wasn't set in the 60s. She probably was. Jess wouldn't argue that, but he saw her as a beautiful, wild creature who had been caught for a moment in that dirty old cage of a schoolhouse. Perhaps by mistake, but he hoped, he prayed she'd never get loose and fly away. He managed to endure the whole boring week of school for that 1.5 hour on Friday afternoons when they'd sit on the worn-out rug on the floor of the teacher's room. There was no place else in the building for Miss Edmunds to spread out all her stuff. And sing songs like "My Beautiful Balloon," "This Land is Your Land," "Free to Be You and Me," "Blowing in the Wind," and because Mr. Turner, the principal, insisted, "God Bless America." Miss Edmunds would play her guitar and let the kids take turns on the auto harp, the triangles, cymbals, tambourines, and bongo drums. Lord, could they ever make a racket. All the teachers hated Fridays, and a lot of the kids pretended to. But Jess knew what fakes they were. Sniffing hippie and peacenik, even though the Vietnam War was over, and it was supposed to be okay again to be like peace. To like peace. The kids would make fun of Miss Edmunds' lack of lipstick or the cut of her jeans. So lack means not having. They made fun of the fact that she doesn't have lipstick, and they didn't like the way that her jeans were. Do you think she cared about any of that? Do you think fashion was that important to Miss Edmunds? She was, of course, the only female teacher anyone had ever seen in Lark Creek Elementary wearing pants. Now, that doesn't mean that she went pantsless. It meant that in this school, the teachers were really formal and they all wore dresses only. It's kind of the way it was back in the old days at the time of the war. But remember, this book, the setting is not in the 60s. It's supposed to be after. So they'll be talking about the 60s in the past tense. In Washington and in its fancy suburbs, even in Millsburg, that was okay, but Lark Creek was the backwash of fashion. That means they were kind of country. It took them a long time to accept what everyone else could see by their TVs was okay anywhere else. So the students of Lark Creek Elementary sat at their desks all Friday, their hearts thumping with anticipation as they listened to the joyful pandemonium pouring out from the teacher's room, spent their allotted half hours with Miss Edmunds under the spell of her wild beauty and in the snare of her enthusiasm, and then went out and pretended that they couldn't be suckered by some hippie in tight jeans with makeup all over her eyes but none on her mouth. Jess just kept his mouth shut. It wouldn't help to try to defend Miss Edmunds against their unjust and hypocritical attacks. Besides, she was beyond their stupid behavior. It couldn't touch her, but whenever possible, he stole a few minutes on Fridays just to stand close to her and hear her soft voice, and hear her voice soft and smooth as suede, assuring him that he was a neat kid. Why do you think the author spent so much time describing Miss Edmunds? Descriptive phrases like under the spell of her wild beauty or the snare of her enthusiasm. Like a trap. Just to stand close to her and hear her voice soft and smooth as suede, assuring him that he was a neat kid. Think about how Jess feels. Think about his experiences at home and his experiences with Miss Edmunds and how different the feeling is, how different the environment is, and how different the feeling is for Jess on that 30 minutes of music class on Fridays. We can tell that it's just so important that it makes him feel completely different than the way his family at home makes him feel. We're alike, Jess would tell himself, me and Miss Edmunds. Beautiful Julia. Their syllables rolled through his head like a ripple of guitar chords. We don't belong at Lark Creek, Julia and me. You're the proverbial diamond in the rough, she said to him once, touching his nose lightly with the tip of her electrifying finger. But it was she who was the diamond, sparkling out of the muddy, grassless, dirty brick setting. We have an interesting metaphor here. He called her we have a metaphor here. Jess calls Miss Edmunds a diamond, sparkling. What do you think he means by that? Think about, again, his life is kind of dull, almost a little dark and sad, and that she is very bright and beautiful and wonderful. And a diamond has a lot of value to it also. Jess shoved the pad and pencil under his mattress and lay down flat, his heart thumping against the quilt. Do you remember why he has to shove all his stuff under the mattress? How does his dad feel about the fact that he wants to be an artist? Not wonderful, right? His mother was at the door, though. You got milk yet? He jumped off the bed. Just going to. He dodged around her and out, grabbing the pail from beside the sink and the stool from beside the door before she could ask him what he had been up to. Lights were winking out of all 3 floors of the Perkins place, the old Perkins place. Remember, the Perkins place is not a fancy place. It has a bad reputation, or has a reputation of being something that people only move into if they don't have a choice, kind of place where somebody poor winds up going to because it's better than nothing. It was nearly dark. Miss Bessie's bag was tight. They're talking about a milk bag. And she was fidgeting with discomfort. She should have been milked a couple of hours ago. He eased himself onto the stool and began to tug. The warm milk pinged into the pail. Down the road, an occasional truck passed by with its dimmers on. His dad would be home soon, and so would those cagey girls who managed somehow to have all the fun and leave him and their mother with all the work. He wondered what they had bought with all their money. Lord, what he wouldn't give for a new pad of real art paper and a set of those marking pens, colors pouring out onto the page as fast as you could think it. Not like stubby school crayons you had to press down on until somebody griped at you about breaking them. A car was turning in. It was the Timmonses. The girls had beat Dad home. Jess could hear their happy calls as the car door slammed. Mama would fix them supper, and when he went in with the milking, he'd find them all laughing and chattering. Mama had even forgotten she was tired and mad. He was the only one who had to take that stuff. Sometimes he felt so lonely among all those females. Even the one rooster had died, and they hadn't even gotten another yet. With his father gone from sun up until well past dark, who was there to know how he felt? Weekends weren't any better. His dad was so tired from the wear and tear of the week and trying to catch up around the place that when he wasn't actually working, he was sleeping in front of the TV. Hey, Jess, Maybelle, that dumb kid wouldn't even let you think privately.
What do you want now?
Think about Jess and Maybelle's relationship. Again, he's kind of mean to her. He takes out on her what everybody else is doing to him, but he doesn't dare talk like that to his older sisters or his mom. He watched her shrink 2 sizes. Do you think he literally watched her get smaller and smaller? Would that make sense in a realistic fiction novel? No. But what do you think it might mean that he watched her shrink? When you get embarrassed, do you ever feel like you're just getting smaller and smaller? So he watched her face get sad and feel bad. Maybe she felt small. I got something to tell you. She hung her head. You ought to be in bed, he said huffily, mad at himself for cutting her down. Ellie and Brenda come home? Came home. Why couldn't he quit picking on her? Now, notice that right here, why couldn't he quit picking on her? That's not the author saying that about him. That's actually him saying it to himself. He picks on her and then he tells himself, why do you do that? Do you ever tell yourself that? Do you ever get into something and go, oh, why do I keep doing that? I know I do it all the time. But her news was too delicious to let him stop her sharing it. Can news be delicious? No, he didn't eat the news. What do you think delicious in the sense means? Really good, like juicy. You guys call it the juice or the tea. Ellie bought herself a see-through blouse and Mama's throwing a fit. Good, he thought. That ain't nothing to cheer about, he said. Brippity, brippity, brippity. Who's coming home? It's Dad. Daddy! Maybelle screamed with delight and started running for the door. Jess watched his dad stop the truck, lean over to unlatch the door so Maybelle could climb in. He turned away. Darn lucky kid. She could run after him and grab him and kiss him. It made Jess ache inside to watch his dad grab the little ones over his shoulder or lean down and hug them. It seemed to him that he'd been thought too big for that since the day he was born. When the pail was full, he gave Miss Bessie a pat to move her away. Putting the stool under his left arm, he carried the heavy pail carefully so none of the milk would slop out. Mighty late with the milking, aren't you, son? It was the only thing his father said directly to him all evening. Hey, Joss, I'm almost done. Can you and Kylo stay quiet, please? Okay. The next morning, he almost didn't get up at the sound of the pickup. He could feel, even before he came fully awake, how tired he still was. But Maybelle was grinning at him, propped up on one elbow. Ain't you gonna run? She asked. Shh, Jocelyn, please, your voice is being picked up in this video. Hey, please stop talking to the dog for 3 more minutes, okay? Ain't you gonna run? She asked. No, he said, shoving the sheet away. I'm gonna fly. Is he gonna fly? No, it's a metaphor. What does the metaphor, I'm gonna fly, probably mean? If you said run fast, which you hopefully did, you were right. Because he was more tired than usual, he had to push himself harder. He pretended that Wayne Pettis was there, just ahead of him, and he had to keep up. His feet pounded the uneven ground, and he thrashed his arms harder and harder. He'd catch him. Watch out, Wayne Pettis, he said between his teeth. I'll get you. You can't beat me. If you're so afraid of the cow, the voice said, why don't you just climb the fence? He paused in midair like a stop-action TV shot and turned, almost losing his balance, to face the questioner who was sitting on the fence nearest the old Perkins place, dangling bare brown legs. The person had jaggedy brown hair cut close to its face and wore one of those blue undershirt-like tops with faded jeans cut off above the knees. He couldn't honestly tell whether it was a boy or a girl. Hi, he or she said, jerking his or her head to the Perkins place. We just moved in. Jess stood where he was staring. The person slid off the fence and came toward her. I thought we might as well be friends. It said, there's no one else close by. Girl, he decided, definitely a girl, but he couldn't have said why. He suddenly was sure. She was about his height, not quite though, so he was pleased to realize as she came near her. She was about his height, not quite though, he was pleased to realize as she came nearer. My name's Leslie Burke. She even had one of those dumb names that could go either way, but he was sure now that he was right. What's the matter? Huh? Is something the matter? Yeah. No. He pointed his thumb in the direction of his own house and then wiped his hair off his forehead. Just errands. Too bad Maybelle's girl came in the wrong size. Well, he added to her. See you. He turned toward the house. No use trying to run anymore this morning. Might as well milk Miss Bessie and get that out of the way. Hey! Leslie was standing in the middle of the cow field, her head tilted and her hands on her hips. Where are you going? I gotta work, he called back over his shoulder. And when he came out later with the pail and stool, she was gone.